A man named Raj went hiking alone in a deep forest. He wanted peace and quiet. The forest was dark and cold, and there was no phone signal. After walking for hours, he found an old wooden cabin. It looked empty, but he decided to rest there for the night. Inside the cabin was dusty. There was no electricity. Raj sat down and ate some food. As it got dark, he lit a small fire. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then he heard something strange, a phone ringing. But Raj didn't bring a phone with him. The sound came from a corner of the cabin. There was an old rotary phone on the floor, covered in dust. It should not work, but it was ringing. He slowly picked it up and said, "Hello." There was no voice, only breathing, slow, deep breathing. He quickly dropped the phone, but it rang again and again. Every time he picked it up, there was just breathing, sometimes closer, sometimes louder. Suddenly, he heard footsteps outside the cabin, but when he looked out, there was no one there. Then the phone rang again. Raj's hands were shaking. He didn't want to pick up the phone again, but it kept ringing, loud, sharp, like it was calling him on purpose. He covered it with a blanket, hoping to stop the sound, but the ringing didn't stop. It got louder. Suddenly, the cabin's door creaked open by itself. Wind blew in. Raj grabbed a stick from the firewood, ready to defend himself. "Is anyone there?" he shouted. No answer. Then he saw something move in the trees. A tall shadow, standing still, watching him. Raj stepped outside to get a better look. The shadow disappeared, but when he turned around, the phone was outside now on the ground. It rang. He was too scared, but something told him to answer. Slowly he picked it up. This time a voice whispered, "Don't stay in the cabin." Then the call ended. The forest went silent. Raj looked around. There were footprints in the mud, but not his. And they were leading straight into the cabin. Raj froze when he saw the footprints. They were large, barefoot, and wet, as if someone had just walked out of a river. But there was no water nearby. He stepped back slowly. His heart was beating fast. Then the cabin door slammed shut by itself. Raj ran to it and pulled. Locked. From inside, he heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Moving across the wooden floor. Then the phone rang again from inside the cabin. He stared through the small window. The fire had gone out. The room was dark, but something was moving. A shadow taller than any man passed near the window. Suddenly the voice came again, this time not from the phone, but from behind him. "You shouldn't have come here." Raj turned around. No one was there. The wind blew harder. The trees seemed to whisper. The phone rang again, this time from the forest. Far away in the darkness, he saw a faint red light. A phone booth. In the middle of the trees, it started ringing too. And then another one. And another. The whole forest echoed with phones ringing. Raj stood frozen. The sound of ringing phones echoed from every direction. Deep inside the forest, it was like the trees were full of them. He wanted to run, but his legs felt heavy. Suddenly, his own pocket vibrated. He had left his phone in his backpack, but now it was in his pocket, and it was ringing. His hands shook as he pulled it out. The screen was black. No number, just one word. "Answer." He pressed it to his ear. A deep, broken voice whispered, "You have seen it. Now it sees you." The call cut off. Then the cabin door creaked open again. Slowly, smoke poured out. Not from fire, from something dark and cold. Raj stepped back, but the forest behind him had changed. The trees were twisted now, like they had moved while he wasn't looking. He tried to run, but his feet sank into the ground, as if the earth was turning soft, pulling him in. He screamed. Suddenly, silence. No wind, no phone, no footsteps. And then from deep in the trees, the last phone rang. But this time, a child's voice answered it. "He's here now." Raj broke free from the soft ground and stumbled forward. His clothes were wet and cold, like he had fallen into water. But there was no river, no rain. He didn't know where he was anymore. The forest had changed. The trees were too tall, too close together, and they all looked the same. But something was worse. The forest was silent now. No wind, no insects, no birds. Then a laugh, a child's laugh, very close. He turned around. There was a little girl standing by a tree, pale skin, long black hair. Her eyes were completely black. She held a phone in her hands. "Did you hear him?" she asked. Raj backed away. "Who?" The girl smiled. "The one who lives between the rings." Suddenly her phone rang. She answered it, then held it out toward Raj. "He wants to talk to you." Raj didn't take it. He ran. Branches cut his skin as he pushed through the trees, but the ringing followed him. No matter how far he ran, it was always just behind him. Then he saw it again. The red phone booth. Only now someone was inside it, standing still, face hidden. The phone was ringing, and slowly, the figure began to turn. Raj stopped running. He was breathing hard, shaking. The red phone booth stood just ahead, glowing in the dark like it didn't belong in the forest. The figure inside it turned. It had no face, just smooth skin where eyes, nose, and mouth should be. But it was holding the phone up to its head, still ringing. Then it slowly lowered the phone and held it out toward Raj. Even though there was no mouth, Raj heard it speak clearly inside his mind. "You've already answered. Now you belong to us." Suddenly, Raj's phone vibrated again. This time the screen didn't say answer. It said too late. He dropped the phone. It cracked on the ground. But the ringing didn't stop. Now it was coming from the trees, from the sky, from the ground below his feet, everywhere. He covered his ears. But then a final sound broke through. A woman crying, softly, from deep inside the forest. Raj looked up. In the distance, barely visible between the trees, was the cabin again. But this time there was a light in the window. Someone was watching him. Raj didn't want to go back to the cabin, but something pulled him. The light in the window flickered like it was calling to him. The sound of the woman crying grew louder. Step by step he moved closer. The trees were silent again. No wind. No animals. Just that soft crying and the ringing still echoing from somewhere deep. When Raj reached the cabin, the door was open. The light inside was dim yellow like candlelight. He stepped in slowly. The room was the same, but now there was a mirror on the wall that hadn't been there before. And in that mirror, he saw himself, but it wasn't really him. His reflection was smiling, but he wasn't. The reflection slowly raised its hand and waved. Then it pointed behind him. Raj turned quickly. No one was there. He looked back at the mirror. Now the mirror was empty. No reflection, just darkness. And suddenly the phone on the floor rang again. But this time it had his own voice coming from it. "You're already inside. You never left." The door slammed shut behind him. The crying stopped. And in the dark corner of the room, something was standing up. Raj's breath caught in his throat. The shape in the corner slowly rose. It was tall, thin, and its skin looked gray and stretched like old paper. Its head tilted unnaturally, bones cracking with each movement. Raj couldn't move. Then the thing spoke not with a voice, but through the phone on the floor. His voice again. "You opened the door, Raj. You called us." The phone began to melt, dripping black liquid onto the wooden floor. Raj backed away, but the floorboards creaked loudly under his feet. He turned toward the door, but now there was no door, just a wall. The cabin had sealed itself. The mirror behind him lit up again. Now it showed dozens of faces, trapped inside the glass. Their mouths open like they were screaming, but no sound came out. He stepped closer and saw his own face among them, frozen, terrified. Then something cold grabbed his shoulder. He turned. Nothing, but the reflection showed the gray creature's hand still on him. The phone rang again, but now the ring sounded like a heartbeat. And then silence. All at once the lights went out. The cabin was dark, and a voice whispered one last thing in his ear. "He's here." Raj stood frozen in the total darkness. He couldn't even see his hands, couldn't hear the wind, couldn't feel the ground, just that voice still echoing in his head. "He's here." Then a slow dragging sound across the floor. Something was crawling toward him. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The sound stopped, right in front of him. Then he felt a warm breath on his face. Too close, too real. Suddenly the mirror lit up again. But now it wasn't a reflection. It showed a room full of phones hanging from the ceiling like vines, each one ringing. And in the center was a tall figure in black, facing away, still, silent. The phone stopped ringing. The figure turned. Its face was a hole, just a deep black hole, like it had no bottom. Then the cabin began to shake. The walls cracked. The ceiling bent. The sound of breaking wood filled the air. Raj tried to scream, but no sound came out. The mirror shattered, and through the cracks in the floor, hands began to reach up, pale hands. grabbing, pulling. Raj was being dragged down, into the floor, into the dark, into the place between the rings. Raj screamed, but no one could hear him. The pale hands pulled him down through the broken floor, into cold black space. He couldn't see where he was falling. There was no ground, no sky, just the sound of phones ringing all around him. Soft, faint, endless. Then he landed. Hard. He stood up slowly. He was no longer in the cabin. He was in a long hallway, dark and narrow. The walls were covered with old phones, hanging. Some broken, some still ringing softly. He reached out and touched one. It answered by itself. A voice whispered, "You should not have listened. Now you never leave." He stepped back. At the end of the hallway, he saw a door, old, rusty, with a number scratched into it. 0. He walked toward it, but as he moved, the phones began to scream. Not ring, scream, all at once. His ears bled. The walls trembled. Then the door opened. Inside was a small room, and in the center was another Raj, tied to a chair, eyes wide open, mouth sewn shut. He looked at Raj with terror. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and behind the other Raj, the faceless man stepped out of the shadows. He reached toward Raj, but the real Raj was already running down a hallway that kept changing, twisting, stretching, and behind him the phones were ringing again. Raj ran faster, but the hallway stretched endlessly before him. Each step seemed to take him farther from the door, farther from the room where the faceless figure stood. The phones along the walls rang louder and louder, their shrill calls filling his mind. He couldn't escape them. They were everywhere. He turned a corner only to find another hallway stretching before him. This one was colder, darker. The walls were slick with something wet, and the air smelled like rotten wood. Behind him, the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy. Raj didn't dare look back. He ran harder. The sound of his breath, the only thing keeping him from going mad. The hallway ended in a large empty room, but the room wasn't empty. On the walls were pictures, old yellowed photographs. In every picture, there was a phone. Some were black, some red, some yellow, and in every one a figure stood holding the phone. But as Raj stepped forward to look closer, the faces in the pictures began to move. Their eyes followed him. One of the figures in the picture reached out. Raj stumbled back, his heart racing. He tried to run, but the room seemed to close in on him. The walls began to pulse as if alive, and then the phone rang again. This time it wasn't on the wall. It was right behind him. Raj spun around. The faceless figure stood there, holding the phone out to him. "You've already answered it," whispered. Raj froze, staring at the faceless figure. His mind was spinning, his thoughts racing. The phone in the figure's hand rang again. He could hear the sound cutting through the thick air, echoing in his ears. The figure held out the phone, but Raj couldn't bring himself to touch it. Every instinct screamed for him to run to escape whatever this thing was. But it didn't matter. The figure moved closer, slow but steady. Its body shifted unnaturally, its limbs too long, too twisted, like it was made of shadows. The phone was now inches from his face. "Answer it," it whispered. Raj wanted to scream, but the words were trapped in his throat. He tried to step back, but his legs wouldn't move. It was like the floor had turned to quicksand, pulling him deeper with each passing second. The figure's hand began to tremble. Its fingers curled around the phone and it pressed it against Raj's ear. He had no choice. The second the phone touched his skin, a voice filled his head. It wasn't the faceless figure. It was something much darker, much deeper. "You've entered. You've answered. Now you will never leave." The walls around him seemed to close in. The air grew thick, suffocating. The ringing of the phones echoed louder, like 1,000 calls coming from the void. His heart pounded so loud he couldn't hear his own thoughts anymore. Then in a single instant, everything stopped. The ringing, the breathing, the sound of the wind. Raj opened his eyes. He was standing in a new room. The walls were completely white, like a hospital room. There was no door, no windows, only one thing, a phone on the floor. He bent down to pick it up, but as his fingers brushed the cold plastic, the phone began to ring again, and the voice on the other side said, "You're not the first. You won't be the last." Raj's hand hovered over the phone, but something inside him screamed to leave it alone. The voice on the other side of the phone was chilling, too familiar, too cold. He turned around, hoping to find a way out. But the room was still the same empty, sterile white walls surrounding him. There were no doors, no windows, only the phone. The voice spoke again, but this time it sounded different. It sounded like him. "Pick it up, Raj." "It's too late." The words sent a cold shiver through him. He stepped back, the phone still ringing its sound, filling the entire room. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. What was happening? Why couldn't he escape? Without thinking, he dropped to his knees and picked up the phone. The voice was louder now, more urgent, as if it had been waiting for him. "You shouldn't have come. You should have never answered." The phone crackled. A strange static buzzed in his ear. And then, the line went silent. Raj waited. The silence felt like an eternity. His heart thudded against his ribs, his palms sweaty. He couldn't tell if he was dreaming or if this nightmare was real. But then the silence broke. A loud bang like something heavy hitting the floor. Raj spun around, his heart in his throat. The walls were gone. In their place was a forest. The same dark, twisted trees. The same cold air. The same endless ringing of phones. Raj stumbled back, terrified. How had he gotten back here? Was he still in the forest? Or had he crossed into another place? And then a figure appeared, a shadow moving between the trees. It wasn't the faceless man. It wasn't the girl with the black eyes. It was him, a twisted, distorted version of Raj. He looked different, older, pale eyes wide with terror, and in his hand he held a phone. "I was you," the twisted Raj whispered. Raj's breath caught. He was facing himself, but not the way he remembered. The figure raised the phone and held it up to Raj's ear. And then with a twisted smile, he whispered, "You've answered. Now you are me." Raj's hand hovered over the phone, but something inside him screamed to leave it alone. The voice on the other side of the phone was chilling, too familiar, too cold. He turned around, hoping to find a way out. But the room was still the same empty, sterile white walls surrounding him. There were no doors, no windows, only the phone. The voice spoke again, but this time it sounded different. It sounded like him. "Pick it up, Raj, it's too late." The words sent a cold shiver through him. He stepped back, the phone still ringing its sound, filling the entire room. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. What was happening? Why couldn't he escape? Without thinking, he dropped to his knees and picked up the phone. The voice was louder now, more urgent, as if it had been waiting for him. "You shouldn't have come. You should have never answered." The phone crackled. A strange static buzzed in his ear. And then, the line went silent. Raj waited. The silence felt like an eternity. His heart thudded against his ribs, his palms sweaty. He couldn't tell if he was dreaming or if this nightmare was real. But then the silence broke. A loud bang like something heavy hitting the floor. Raj spun around, his heart in his throat. The walls were gone. In their place was a forest. The same dark, twisted trees. The same cold air. The same endless ringing of phones. Raj stumbled back, terrified. How had he gotten back here? Was he still in the forest? Or had he crossed into another place? And then a figure appeared, a shadow moving between the trees. It wasn't the faceless man. It wasn't the girl with the black eyes. It was him, a twisted, distorted version of Raj. He looked different, older, pale eyes wide with terror, and in his hand he held a phone. "I was you," the twisted Raj whispered. Raj's breath caught. He was facing himself, but not the way he remembered. The figure raised the phone and held it up to Raj's ear. And then with a twisted smile, he whispered, "You've answered. Now you are me." Raj felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at his twisted reflection. The figure, the other Raj, held the phone up to his ear, his eyes wide like a man trapped in the same nightmare. The phone in his hand rang again, loud and shrill. It was a call Raj knew he couldn't avoid. He took a step back, but the twisted version of himself stepped forward, blocking the way. "You can't run," the twisted Raj whispered, his voice filled with dark amusement. "You've already answered." Raj's pulse raced. His body froze, and all he could do was stare at the phone in the other Raj's hand. The ring felt like it was coming from deep within him, echoing in his bones. Then, without warning, the twisted version of himself reached out and touched his face. The touch was cold. A jolt of fear shot through Raj. "You're already part of this place," the twisted Raj said, his voice low and cold. "This is where you stay now. There's no leaving. You belong to the phones." Raj's mind spun. He had to escape. He had to find a way out. But the twisted version of himself just stood there, holding the phone with a dark grin, watching Raj struggle. The twisted Raj slowly raised the phone to his own ear and answered it. The voice on the other end was familiar. It was the same voice he had heard in the cabin, the same voice that haunted him in the forest. "You answered," it said, "and now you're one of us forever." Raj could feel something changing inside him. His skin was getting cold. His thoughts were becoming blurry. The twisted Raj held up the phone, now dripping with dark liquid, and whispered, "Answer it again, Raj. Take the call." Raj felt his hand moving of its own accord, reaching out to the phone in the twisted Raj's hand. He tried to fight it, but his fingers closed around the phone, pulling it to his ear, and then the world shifted. Raj's hand hovered over the phone, but something inside him screamed to leave it alone. The voice on the other side of the phone was chilling, too familiar, too cold. He turned around, hoping to find a way out. But the room was still the same, empty, sterile white walls surrounding him. There were no doors, no windows, only the phone. The voice spoke again, but this time it sounded different. It sounded like him. "Pick it up, Raj, it's too late." The word sent a cold shiver through him. He stepped back, the phone still ringing its sound, filling the entire room. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. What was happening? Why couldn't he escape? Without thinking, he dropped to his knees and picked up the phone. The voice was louder now, more urgent, as if it had been waiting for him. "You shouldn't have come. You should have never answered." The phone crackled. A strange static buzzed in his ear, and then the line went silent. Raj waited. The silence felt like an eternity. His heart thudded against his ribs, his palms sweaty. He couldn't tell if he was dreaming or if this nightmare was real. But then the silence broke. A loud bang, like something heavy hitting the floor. Raj spun around, his heart in his throat. The walls were gone. In their place was a forest. The same dark, twisted trees. The same cold air. The same endless ringing of phones. Raj stumbled back, terrified. How had he gotten back here? Was he still in the forest? Or had he crossed into another place? And then a figure appeared. A shadow moving between the trees. It wasn't the faceless man. It wasn't the girl with the black eyes. It was him. A twisted, distorted version of Raj. He looked different, older, pale eyes wide with terror. And in his hand he held a phone. "I was you," the twisted Raj whispered. Raj's breath caught. He was facing himself, but not the way he remembered. The figure raised the phone and held it up to Raj's ear. And then with a twisted smile he whispered, "You've answered." Raj was no longer Raj. He wasn't a man. He wasn't even a person anymore. He was a part of the endless cycle. A voice, a ring, a soul lost inside the phone. But even within this endless nightmare, a spark of awareness remained deep inside him. Somewhere in the back of his mind he could hear a faint sound, something familiar. The sound of a phone ringing. It wasn't the deafening, unrelenting ringing that had become his existence. This one was different. It was sharp, clear, like a signal breaking through the chaos. Raj tried to focus. He tried to push through the haze of voices and static. The ringing grew louder, and then a voice. It was a new voice. Not the one from before, not the faceless one, but something new. "Hello?" the voice asked. It was calm, uncertain, but it wasn't distorted. It didn't belong here. Raj felt a strange pull, like something inside him was awakening. Was it a new soul, a new person about to answer the call? He tried to reach out, but his fingers were no longer his own. He felt as though his entire being was suspended in the ringing, trapped inside. The phone unable to escape, but somehow still aware. The voice spoke again. "Is anyone there? Please help me." Raj felt an overwhelming need to reach out to warn this person, to stop them from making the same mistake. He wanted to scream, but his mouth didn't work. All he could do was listen. "You're not alone," Raj's mind whispered, though the words were barely audible. "Don't answer the phone." But it was too late. The ringing stopped. For a moment, everything went still. Then the voice on the other end spoke one final time. "I can hear you." And Raj felt it, the familiar pull. The same pull that had dragged him into this nightmare. The cycle was complete, and somewhere far away the phone rang again. The world around Raj shuddered, then broke apart. He felt as though he were falling again, this time without any end, no bottom to reach. The ringing in his mind grew deafening, louder than ever before, but he no longer heard it from the phones around him. No, this time it came from within him, echoing through his very bones, his soul. His awareness was fractured, scattered across 1,000 places, 1,000 calls. But amidst the chaos there was something familiar, something he should have known. The voice. It wasn't a phone ringing anymore. It wasn't a voice from the past. No, This time it was his voice, the voice of the person who had answered, the one who had made the same mistake, who had fallen into the endless trap. Raj's heart, if it could still be called that, twisted in his chest. He knew now. He knew who had answered the phone. It wasn't the new person, it was him. He had become the phone. He had become the one who would call. The cycle was never ending, always turning, always repeating. And now Raj realized what he had to do. His own voice, his own call rippled through the darkness. He spoke, but the words felt foreign, detached. "I can hear you." The phone at his side once again. An old, cracked black phone began to ring. The sound sliced through the quiet like a blade. He knew what would happen next. He knew who would answer. Someone would. Someone always did. The new soul would take the call. They would listen. They would fall. And the cycle would continue. Raj looked around, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The world, or what remained of it, was now only endless ringing. "Hello." A new voice broke through, trembling. Raj's heart, if it was still capable of beating, sank. He wasn't Raj anymore. He wasn't even a person anymore. He was just a voice trapped in the static, a whisper in the dark, always ready to answer. And as the phone continued to ring, he heard the distant, familiar voice on the other end say, "I'm here, I can hear you." And Raj realized in that moment that there would never be any escape. The ringing would never stop. Raj's sense of self was slipping away, lost in the never-ending void of static. He was no longer bound by the rules of the physical world. His mind was a part of the phone. A whisper in the signal, a flicker in the screen. The ringing never stopped. The voices of the trapped souls, including his own, all called out from the depths, all overlapping, becoming one continuous hum. Answer, answer, answer. Raj could no longer tell if he was still Raj at all. His name was just a distant memory, a sound. He couldn't remember clearly anymore. He wasn't a person, he was a call. He was part of the signal, part of the ringing. It was as though he had become the very thing that cursed him. He could feel the presence of other souls who had once been alive, who had once walked the earth and now were trapped inside the phones. They were all around him in the buzzing static, their voices merging and mixing with his own. "You are us," they whispered their words, cutting through him like knives. "You will never leave." And then a shift. For the first time, Raj heard silence. It wasn't the emptiness of nothingness, but the absence of the endless ringing. The noise, the screaming voices, everything stopped. There was nothing but blackness, nothing but stillness. Raj felt a wave of panic wash over him. What was this? Where was he now? He reached out with his mind, trying to sense something, anything. And that's when he saw it. A figure standing in the distance, illuminated only by the faint glow of a phone screen. The figure didn't move, but Raj felt its presence calling to him, pulling him in. He felt himself drawn toward it, unable to. Raj's world was no longer his own. It was a prison, an endless loop where time and space didn't exist, only the ringing. It filled him, surrounded him, consumed him. The phone had become his soul, the call his only purpose. The twisted figure in front of him stepped back, watching. Raj with an eerie satisfaction. Its eyes, those hollow, empty sockets, bored into him. It was as if it could see through him into the very core of what was left of his humanity. The phone in Raj's hands felt colder now, the weight heavier. It pulsed, its screen flickering with an unnatural glow, as if it were alive. Raj could feel the pull, the hunger. It wanted him to answer. It always wanted him to answer. But this time, something felt different. The air thickened. The voices in the static began to whisper urgently their words, now clearer, louder. "It's time," they murmured in unison. "Answer, and the cycle ends." Raj's hand trembled as he raised the phone to his ear. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't fight it. The phone had become a part of him, and he was trapped in its endless call. The moment he pressed the phone to his ear, the world around him shifted. The twisted figure in front of him was gone. The forest, the room, the endless void, everything disappeared. He was standing in front of something else now. It was a room, a familiar room. The walls were cracked and peeling, the air damp and heavy. It was a room he knew all too well, the cabin in the forest. But there was something wrong. The air was thick with anticipation, as if something was about to happen. And then the phone in his hand began to ring again. Raj stared at the phone in disbelief. He had escaped. He had to have escaped. This room, this place. It was the same place he had first discovered the cursed phones. The same place that had pulled him into this nightmare. "Hello," he whispered into the phone, his voice shaking. He could barely recognize it as his own. For a moment, everything was silent. The phone was just a phone again. The ringing was gone. And then a voice spoke. It was the voice of the faceless figure. The one who had first trapped him, the one who had haunted him in the forest? You answered. The voice sounded almost satisfied, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Now it's your turn. Now you are the one who calls. Suddenly Raj felt a cold, sharp pain in his chest. The world around him blurred again, the room fading into darkness. The phone in his hand felt heavier now, its weight like a stone pressing against his body. The ringing came back louder, more deafening as the voice of the faceless figure echoed one last time. The cycle will never end. You are the phone now. You will call and they will answer, always. Raj's chest felt as if it were being crushed by the weight of the phone, the ringing reverberating through him like a never-ending pulse. His mind was spiraling a vortex of confusion and fear. The faceless figure's voice echoed in, his head, its words sinking deeper with every passing second. You are the phone now, you will never leave. You will call and they will answer. The room around him continued to shift. One moment he was standing in the cabin surrounded by peeling wallpaper and the smell of decay. The next moment he was back in the forest, standing beneath the twisted trees where it had all begun. The phone was still in his hand and the ringing never stopped. Answer, answer, answer. He couldn't escape it. No matter where he went, no matter how hard he tried to run, the ringing followed him. The call echoed inside his mind like a constant reminder of the curse that had become his existence. Raj wanted to scream, to tear the phone from his hands, but his body no longer responded. He was the phone. Every time he tried to break free, the phone pulled him back, its power tightening around him like chains. The twisted figure's words echoed louder in his ears. You are the answer. You will never leave. Raj's mind began to fracture. He could no longer tell where his thoughts ended and the call began. The voices of the souls trapped inside the phone were all around him, now their whispers blending together into one deafening chorus. Answer, you must answer. And then a new voice broke through the chaos. It was faint at first, a distant murmur, but it grew louder, clearer. Is anyone there? Raj froze. It was a new voice, a new soul. Someone had answered someone. Had made the mistake he had. Raj couldn't help it. The phone seemed to vibrate with urgency, pulling him closer to the new soul, forcing him to speak. His lips parted, but instead of his own voice, it was the voice of the faceless figure that escaped him. You answered, you are ours now. The voice on the other end trembled. Please help me, I don't want to be here. What is this place? Raj could feel the soul on the other end of the phone, their desperation, their fear. He remembered what it felt like to be that person, to be trapped, to be pulled into the cycle. And he wanted to help, but it was too late. He had become the phone. He had become the answer. There was no escape. You will never leave, Raj, whispered the words, slipping from his mouth like they were not his own. You are us now. We are the phone. And as the soul on the other end of the line began to scream, Raj realized something chilling. The phone was not just the tool of the curse, it was the source. The phone was the curse. The ringing, the calls, the endless voices, they were all part of it. It wasn't the people who were cursed. It wasn't the forest. It wasn't even the faceless figure. The phone was the prison. And now it had claimed him. And the next soul would come. And the next. It would never stop. Raj's mind felt like it was splitting in two, the ringing of the phone louder than ever, filling every corner of his existence. The screams of the souls trapped inside were becoming a constant hum, a chorus of despair that never ceased. The voices blurred together, their cries and pleas mixing into an unholy melody that reverberated through his every thought. And yet through it all, Raj knew the truth. He wasn't alone. The phone, the very thing that had cursed him, was alive. It was the heart of everything. Every soul, every voice, every call that had come before had been pulled into it. It was a black hole pulling them all in, never to escape. We are the phone. We are the call. Raj whispered, his voice barely his own. It sounded like the phone was speaking through him, its words slipping past his lips with chilling precision. The phone in his hands pulsed with an unnatural energy, the screen flickering with images of faces distorted, twisted, their eyes wide with terror. They were all there, trapped behind the screen, their souls bound to the device. But there was something else now. Raj looked around, his eyes trying to focus on the shifting darkness. There in the far distance, a shadow moved. It was slow at first, but then it began to grow. A figure, another soul. It was someone new, someone who had found their way into the curse, someone who had answered the phone. The figure stepped closer, its features coming into focus. It was a man, young and scared, his eyes wide with terror. He was holding his own phone, trembling as he stared at the screen, unsure of what was happening. "Hello," the man called into the phone, his voice cracking. Raj's heart, or what was left of it, ached with pity. He had been this person once. He had answered the call thinking it was just another ordinary ring. But now he was something else, something darker, something eternal. Raj could feel the pull. The phone wanted him to answer. It wanted him to complete the cycle. But instead of answering, Raj reached out his fingers, trembling as he tried to reach the man trying to warn him. His mouth opened, but the words didn't come out. He was just a voice, just a call. The man on the other end of the phone gasped. "Who is this? What is happening?" Raj could feel the darkness rising, consuming him, pulling him back into the phone. The figure in the distance was getting closer, the phone vibrating in his hand. Raj tried to scream, but the only sound that escaped him was a ringing. "You've answered," the faceless voice echoed, this time from inside Raj's head. "And now you are the answer, the new soul." The man who had answered the phone was trembling, now his hands shaking as the screen on his phone flickered. Raj knew what would happen next. The man would become like him. The cycle would continue. There was no escape. As the phone rang once more, Raj realized something terrible. The phone didn't need to ring anymore. The call was eternal. The curse had no end. It was like a fire that consumed everything in its path, spreading, faster, reaching further until there was no one left untouched. The phone was no longer just a device. It was the curse. And Raj was the first to answer. Now the next soul would answer, and the cycle would begin again. The phone would never stop. And the voices, the souls, they would never escape. They were trapped. They would always be trapped. Raj's mind was no longer his own. He was just a voice, a whisper in the static, endlessly calling. The phone pulsed with dark energy, and he could feel it, its hunger, its insatiable need to consume more souls. The ringing was deafening now, drowning out all other sounds. It was no longer just the phone ringing. It was the entire world calling, pulling him deeper into the abyss. The new soul, the man who had answered, was close, now his voice trembling through the phone. Raj could feel his fear, his desperation. "Who are you?" the man asked, his voice almost pleading. "What is happening? Where am I?" Raj's heart, if he could still feel it, shattered. This man was just like him. He had no idea what he was about to become. He was about to fall into the same trap. The phone would claim him, and there would be no way out. "Don't answer." Raj wanted to scream, but the words came out as a faint whisper, barely a sound. "Don't answer the call." But it was too late. The man's voice wavered, but then he spoke again. "I don't know what's happening, but I have to answer." There was a click on the other end of the phone, and Raj felt the air around him shift. The phone in Raj's hands began to vibrate, its screen flashing wildly. It was as though the phone were alive, growing more powerful with every new soul it pulled in. The call was growing stronger. It was taking over everything, pulling Raj deeper into its web. The man on the other end of the phone gasped. "It's happening. It's all happening." The voice on the other end wasn't just the man anymore. It was the phone, the figure that had tormented Raj, the one that had pulled him into this nightmare in the first place. "You answered," it whispered. "Now you are part of the curse." Raj tried to break free, tried to force the phone from his hands, but it was no use. His fingers felt numb. His body was no longer his own. The phone had become part of him, an extension of his very being. And then a wave of darkness swept over him. He felt himself slipping, his mind drowning in the static. The ringing grew louder, louder than ever before, and Raj realized with horror that he was no longer just inside the phone. He was the phone, the souls, all of them, every single one, who had ever answered, who had ever been trapped in. This curse were now inside him. Their voices merged with his until there was no difference between them. Raj had become the prison. He was the call. He was the answer. And the cycle would continue forever. The man now trapped in the same nightmare was pleading, begging for an escape, but there was no way out. The ringing never stopped. The phone never stopped calling. Raj's voice, no. The phone's voice whispered one last time deep inside his own mind. "You will never leave. No one will. You will always answer. You will always call." And with that, the ringing began again. A new soul would answer. The cycle was eternal. It would never end. Raj had ceased to be Raj. He was no longer a person, no longer a soul. He had become something, worse, something hollow, a mere extension of the phone's cursed will. There was nothing left of the life he had once known. The forest, the cabin, even the faces of those who had answered before, they were all gone, swallowed by the call. Now he was the call, the phone's vibration in his hand felt like a pulse. It was alive, hungry, reaching into the deepest corners of his mind. It had become everything, and now Raj's existence had merged with it. There was no escape, only the call, only the endless ringing. And then it came. The next ring. The sound tore through the darkness around Raj. He felt it deep inside, reverberating through every fiber of what was left of him. The phone. His phone was ringing again, this time from somewhere outside of him. There was no mistaking it now, the cycle had begun again. The next soul, the next victim had found the phone, and now they were about to answer. Raj's mind screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the deafening hum. Don't answer. Don't answer the call. He tried to say it, tried to scream it out, but no sound came. He was nothing more than a vessel for the phone's curse. The voices of the souls trapped inside his voice, their voices had all become one. There was no difference anymore. The new voice, a woman's voice, trembled through the phone, cutting through the static. Hello, hello, is someone there? Raj wanted to reach out. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to save her, but he couldn't. He was just a voice now. The curse had claimed him fully, and now he could only wait for the next soul to fall into its trap. The woman on the other end gasped, her voice trembling as she spoke again. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I am. Please help me. Raj's heart, if it still beat, sank. He knew what was about to happen. He had been this woman once, she was about to become him. The phone vibrated harder, the screen flashing with a bright, unnatural light. The call was calling for her, pulling her into the same nightmare. There was no escape. There was no way out. Raj, now a prisoner of the phone's eternal hunger, felt her fear. He could feel her soul slipping just like his own had. She was about to answer, and once she did, there would be no return. And then she answered. Hello, her voice cracked. The phone's dark power surged, and Raj felt the shift. Her soul was now part of the phone. She was now another voice in the void. No, Raj whispered, but the words never reached her. She couldn't hear him. She was already part of the curse, trapped in the same hell. The phone's hum intensified as the darkness grew stronger. It wasn't just the forest or the cabin anymore. The world itself felt like it was falling, apart, consumed by the never-ending ringing. You will never leave the voice, the phone's voice, whispered from within him, from within. Every soul trapped inside, and Raj realized with a final horrific clarity, he was the phone. There was no escape, no way out. The ringing would never stop. The ringing was deafening now. Every pulse, every vibration, every call shattered what little remained of Raj's consciousness. He was no longer aware of time, of space, of anything that had once been familiar. He was a part of the phone. He was the phone. Every soul that had answered was with him. Now their voices tangled together, a cacophony of screams, whispers, and pleas. They were all here trapped in the same endless nightmare. But it wasn't enough. The phone wanted more. It was never satisfied. It was always hungry. The phone vibrated in Raj's hand, the screen flickering. Violently, he could feel the pull. It wanted him to answer again. Raj tried to fight it. He fought with every ounce of his being, but there was no resistance. He had no control anymore. He had become part of the curse, part of the eternal cycle. The next soul was already on the line. He could hear it, a man's voice trembling with fear. Hello, please someone help me. What's going on? Where am I? Raj's heart ached. This man, this soul, he was about to become just like him, just like the others, just like all the souls trapped within the phone. Raj tried to speak, tried to reach out through the static, but the words were swallowed by the phone. It was the phone now, not him. It controlled everything. He couldn't stop the call. He couldn't stop the cycle. The man's voice grew more frantic, his breathing heavy. Please, please, what is happening? The phone vibrated harder, the screen flashing erratically. Raj felt it. The darkness was closing in on the man. The call was pulling him in. Answer, the voice inside Raj's mind whispered. Answer the call. The man, desperate and confused, didn't know what he was about to do, but it didn't matter. The phone was too powerful. He had already been chosen, and then the man did what all the others had done before him. He answered, hello. His voice cracked as the phone's power surged. The moment he spoke, Raj felt it, the shift. The man's soul was pulled in, trapped within the phone, just like Raj's had been. The phone hummed with satisfaction, its hunger temporarily quelled. But it was only temporary. Raj could feel the man's fear, could feel his desperation. The phone didn't care. The call would continue. The cycle would never end. The man was now a part of the phone. He was one of the souls lost to the ringing forever, and Raj, lost in the never-ending void, could do nothing but wait. He had no form, no body, no identity. He was the phone, he was the call. The call would never stop. The cycle would continue forever. You are the phone now, the voice inside. Raj whispered again, you will never leave. You will always call, always answer. And so the ringing began once more. Raj's sense of self was slowly unraveling. There was no he anymore. No I. It had all faded, lost to the call. He was now the voice, the echo, the relentless ringing his existence. His soul had fused with the phone. Every time it rang, every time another soul answered, it pulled him deeper into the void. The phone pulsed in his hands. No, it wasn't in his hands anymore. His hands weren't his own. He was the phone. The ring echoed through the empty, endless darkness. It was the only sound. Another soul, another victim was drawn to the call. A woman's voice crackled through the phone, sharp and frantic. Is anyone there? Please, I don't know what's happening. Raj could feel her. He could feel her fear, her panic, her confusion. She was just like all the others, drawn in by the ringing, thinking that somehow someone on the other end would answer. But that was the trick, no one answers. The phone was the answer, and now she would be trapped. Raj wanted to warn her to scream through the static, but it was impossible. He had no voice of his own anymore. He was the phone, and the phone didn't speak to save lives. It spoke to claim them. Her breathing was shallow, her voice trembling. Please, please, what is this? Where am I? I don't understand. The phone's screen flickered again, glowing a sickly green. The images flashed in front of Raj's mind, faces distorted and twisted, all staring back at him. Souls trapped forever, waiting for the next one to answer. And then he felt the shift. She answered. Hello, she whispered. The phone surged with energy, its hum growing louder, more intense. Raj's mind, if it could still be called that, screamed, but no sound escaped. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't help her. The phone was hungry, and it had claimed her now, just like it had claimed him. Her voice on the other end, now distorted, cracked as the phone's power overwhelmed her. No, please, I don't want to be here. But her voice was fading. She was fading. She was becoming one of them. One of the countless souls trapped, forever lost in the phone's endless ringing. Raj could feel her fear, feel her soul slipping into the same empty void that had consumed him. The phone's hunger was insatiable. You answered, the phone's voice whispered its words like ice. You are ours now. The screen flashed once more, the light blinding, and Raj realized with a horrifying clarity that the woman was now part of the phone. She was a voice among many, forever ringing, forever trapped in the curse. Raj wanted to cry, but there were no tears. There was nothing left of him. But the phone, the cycle would continue. The phone didn't stop ringing. A new soul would answer, and Raj, lost in the endless dark, would wait. There was no beginning, no end, just the endless, relentless ringing. Raj had long since lost all sense of time. The souls trapped within the phone were no longer distinct, no longer individuals. They were voices trapped in an eternal loop, forever answering the call. And yet the phone demanded more. It wasn't just satisfied with the souls it had claimed, it needed more. More souls, more voices. The phone vibrated in Raj's grasp, or was it in his mind? He could no longer tell. The screen flickered in front of him, showing brief flashes of faces, distorted, frozen in terror. Some of the faces Raj recognized from his own memories, but they were fading. They were no longer real. He was the phone, and the phone was the curse. And as the phone pulsed, the ringing began again. The phone called out, reaching into the void, seeking the next soul. Raj felt it. Another soul was near, another victim about to be claimed. A man's voice crackled through the phone, shaking with disbelief. Hello, is anyone there? What is this? Where am I? Raj recognized the voice immediately. It was the same as all the others. The same fear, the same confusion, the same desperation. Please, the man begged, I need help. I don't know. What's happening? Please, someone answer me. Raj wanted to scream. He wanted to warn him. He wanted to stop it, to break the cycle. But there was nothing he could do. He was just the phone now. He was part of it. The curse didn't want help. It wanted more souls. The phone's pulse intensified, the screen flickering wildly. Raj could feel the man's soul approaching, drawn toward the phone like a moth to a flame. The man was already trapped. There was no way out. Don't answer, Raj thought, or at least he tried. His mind screamed it, but the words never escaped. The phone didn't need words anymore. It was all-consuming, all-powerful. And then the man did what every soul before him had done. He answered. Hello! His voice trembled and the phone surged with energy. The moment he spoke, the man's soul was pulled in, trapped within the phone. His voice began to distort, echoing in the empty space. He was becoming part of the phone's endless cycle. He was lost. The phone hummed with satisfaction, but Raj felt it, the emptiness. The phone's hunger was never truly sated. It would always crave more. You are ours now, the phone's voice whispered from deep within. Raj, the words were cold final. The man was no longer an individual. He was a part of the curse, a voice among the countless others. Raj felt the man's fear, his terror, as his soul was consumed. The phone didn't care. It didn't care about anything but more souls. It was insatiable. The cycle never ends. The voice echoed in Raj's mind, a cruel reminder. Another soul would answer, and Raj would wait. The phone would never stop ringing. The darkness was suffocating Raj. If it was still right to call him, that was nothing more than a whisper. Now a faint echo of the countless souls trapped within the phone. There was no escape, no release, only the ring. The endless, unyielding ringing. The phone vibrated again, as it always did, its pulse deep inside Raj's mind. It was the only sensation left, the only thing that mattered. The phone was not just a tool of torture anymore. It was the world itself. The curse had consumed everything, and now only the phone remained. Raj could feel it again, the call. A new soul, a new victim. A man's voice, shaky and unsure, crackled through the phone's static. Who's there? What's happening? Please, I just want to know where I am. Raj could feel his terror, his desperation. It was the same as every soul before him. The same trembling voice, the same instinct to find help, to find safety. But there was no safety. There was only the phone. Raj could no longer think clearly. His mind, fractured and fading, was lost to the hunger of the phone. It was all that was left. And the man, just like all the others, didn't know any better. He didn't know that answering would mean his soul would be swallowed whole. Raj, if he had the strength, would have screamed at him, would have tried to warn him, but it was impossible. The phone had taken everything from him. And so the man did what every soul before him had done. Hello? His voice trembled as the phone's energy surged. The moment he spoke, the phone's grip tightened. Raj felt the pull, the dark force dragging the man, his soul, and twisting it, reshaping it into something that no longer resembled a person. The phone consumed him. Raj felt his soul, his essence, intertwining with the man's, becoming one in the endless void. His voice, the phone's voice, echoed, resonating through every fiber of his being. You are part of the curse now, it whispered, cold and final. The man's voice started to warp, his desperate pleas fading into the static. No, please, I just wanted to know where I was. But his words, like all others before him, were lost. He was no longer a person. He was no longer an individual. He was a voice in the static, a prisoner forever. Raj could feel him, just as he felt all the others. His essence, his fear, his confusion, all now part of the curse, all part of the phone. The ringing continued. Another soul would answer, and the cycle would never end. Raj was lost. They were all lost. The phone vibrated, its hum growing louder. We are the call. We are the answer. We are eternal. Raj no longer remembered who he had been. His past, his identity were scattered fragments of a broken dream. The phone, the curse, had consumed everything. There was nothing left of his former self. There was only the endless ringing, the vibration pulsing through his very soul. The man, the new victim, was now a voice among the many trapped in the phone. His fear, his confusion faded into the static, swallowed whole by the curse. He was no longer an individual. He was one with the call. The phone pulsed again, vibrating with hunger, needing more. There was no mercy, no reprieve. The souls inside the phone, Raj among them, were powerless. They were voices in the endless dark, waiting, calling, forever trapped in the cycle. And then the ringing began again. Another soul, another victim. Raj couldn't even distinguish the new voice, but he could feel it, a woman full of fear. Her breath, shaky and uncertain. She was like all the others. Her voice cut through the static, desperate and trembling. Hello, is someone there? Please, I don't understand. Where am I? Raj knew what was happening. She didn't know it yet, but she was already lost. The phone was the answer. The phone was the end. Her voice quivered as she spoke again. Please, I need to get out of here. Please just tell me what's happening. The phone vibrated harder, the screen flashing like lightning. It was alive now, more alive than ever before. It was no longer just an object. It was the curse. It was the prison. It was the ring. And then, as it always did, it called her. Raj could feel her fear, her panic, her confusion. She was falling into the trap just like all the others. He wanted to scream, to tell her to not answer, but there was no voice left in him. There was nothing left but the phone. He was part of it now, and she would be too. The woman's voice trembled, full of doubt. Is someone there? Please, please, I just want to understand. And then it happened. She answered. Hello? Her voice cracked as the phone surged with dark energy. The moment she spoke, the phone's grip tightened. Her soul was pulled in, just like all the others, dragged into the void. She was swallowed whole, a new voice among the countless others lost in the static. Raj could feel it, feel her soul becoming one with the curse. He could feel her fear, her desperation fading into nothing. The phone was insatiable. The phone always wanted more. The woman's voice, now warped, began to blend with the others, becoming another echo in the dark. "You are ours now," the voice inside. Raj whispered the words, both comforting and terrifying. Her voice was now indistinguishable from the oath. The phone's hum was louder now, a constant suffocating presence. It was all-consuming, a void that pulled at Raj from within, and without, he no longer remembered what it was like to be a person. He was nothing but a voice now, a fragment of a forgotten soul trapped within the cursed device. The phone didn't care about who or what they were anymore. It didn't care about time or place. It was the call, and the call was all that mattered. Every time it rang, another victim was lost. Another soul was consumed, and the cycle continued. Raj could feel it. The phone was vibrating again. Another soul was approaching. Another victim, another answer. A man's voice, muffled and strained, came through the phone's static. "Hello, is anyone there? What is this? Where am I? Please, I need help." Raj recognized it instantly. This man, like all the others, was desperate. He didn't know what was happening to him. Didn't know that answering would be his doom. Raj wanted to reach out. He wanted to tell him to not answer, to stay away from the phone, but his voice was gone. He was no more than a whisper, a flicker of something once human buried deep. Beneath the phone's endless ringing, the man's voice grew louder, shaking with fear. "Please, what is going on? Where am I? Someone, anyone help me." The phone's energy surged, the screen flashing with violent, erratic bursts of light. The vibration pulsed deep inside. Raj's mind reverberating through every inch of him. He could feel the man's soul drawing closer. The phone was ready to claim him. The phone's hum grew darker. The call was about to be answered. Raj felt it again, the familiar pull, the darkness. He could feel the man's soul being dragged in. He was already lost. The man hesitated, but there was nothing he could do. The phone was too powerful. It had always been too powerful. His fear was palpable, but it was no use. "Hello?" The man's voice cracked as the phone's grip tightened, pulling him in. And just like that, the man was gone. Raj felt it. The shift. The man's soul was now part of the phone. His voice, his terror, his confusion all fading into the static, becoming another voice in the endless eternal call. "You are part of us now." The voice inside Raj whispered, cold and final. The man's voice distorted, blending with the others. He was no longer an individual. He was lost forever, trapped in the phone's hunger. Raj felt the man's fear receding, swallowed by the dark hum of the phone. He had no time to mourn the new soul, no time for anything anymore. The ringing continued. It was always there, always calling. The souls were endless, the cycle eternal. And Raj, he was just one more echo, one more voice among the many. He could feel it, the next soul was approaching. Another victim, another answer. The call would continue forever. There was no escape. There never had been, and there never would be. The phone was everywhere now. Raj no longer knew where he ended and where the phone began. He was part of it, and it was part of him. The ringing, the hum, the vibration, it was all-consuming, all-encompassing. There was nothing left of him but the call. Nothing left but the endless echo of souls lost to the device. The phone had become the only reality, and it was hungry. Another voice crackled through the static. A woman's voice, this time trembling with uncertainty and fear. "Hello, is anyone there? Please help me. I don't understand what's happening." Raj could feel her terror, her confusion. She was like all the others, drawn to the phone, seeking an answer, not knowing that answering would seal her fate. He wanted to tell her to stop, to run, to never touch the phone. But there was nothing left. He was nothing but the phone now. He had no voice. He had no control. He was simply one of the voices trapped in the endless cycle. "Please, someone, anyone, tell me what's going on." Her voice was cracking, desperate. The phone vibrated harder, the energy growing darker, more intense. It was as if the phone was alive, waiting to devour another soul, another victim. Raj could feel it, just as he had felt the others before her. He could feel her soul, her very essence, drawn in, helpless to resist. "You are ours now." The voice inside Raj echoed, cold and unfeeling. The woman's voice trembled once more, but there was nothing she could do. She had already answered. She had already sealed her fate. Her soul was now being consumed, twisted and reshaped by the phone's dark power. Raj felt it. He could feel her soul, her fear, her fading cries. She was fading into the static, lost to the phone forever. There was no escape, no relief. She was just another voice lost in the endless night. Her cries faded. She was gone. And Raj, lost in the endless dark, waited for the next soul to answer. The phone's ringing never stopped. The next victim, the next soul, would always answer. The cycle would continue forever. There was no end to it, no escape, no salvation. Raj had become part of the curse. He had become the phone. And now he would wait. Raj no longer recognized the world outside the phone. He no longer knew if there was a world outside of it. All he knew, all that existed, was the endless call, the vibrating hum that resonated through his being. He had become the phone, the curse, the call. Every soul, every voice that had ever answered was part of the phone now. They were trapped, bound together in an eternal loop, their memories, their personalities fading with each new soul. All that remained was the voice, the fear, the confusion, the darkness. The phone pulsed again. A new soul, another victim, another desperate cry for help. A young man's voice full of dread filled the static. "Please help me. What is this? Where am I?" Raj could feel him. He was close. The fear, the desperation pulsed from him like a heartbeat. It was the same as all the others. The same tremor, the same terror. He didn't know that answering would be his doom. He didn't know that the phone would consume him body and soul. Raj tried in vain to reach out to him, to warn him to scream. But there was no voice left. There was no way to stop the man from answering. The cycle had already begun. The phone hummed louder. The call was inevitable. "Please, I don't know where I am. Help, is anyone there?" The man's voice broke through the static, desperate. But it didn't matter. He was already lost. The phone had found him. His fate had already been sealed. The hum of the phone intensified. Raj could feel the man's soul drawing near, pulled by the phone's insatiable hunger. The dark energy of the phone reached out, pulling him in. "Hello!" The man's voice cracked as the phone surged with power. And in that moment, Raj felt the man's soul being consumed, swallowed whole by the phone. His voice distorted, his fear fading as he was drawn into the void. He was lost. He was just another voice, now part of the phone's eternal call. Raj could feel it, the shift, as the man's essence merged with the countless others. His memories were wiped away. His soul was gone, replaced by the ringing, the endless hum of the phone. And Raj, forever lost within the phone, waited. The ringing began again. Another soul, another victim, another answer. Raj had become nothing but a part of the phone, a fragment of the curse, and the curse would continue forever. There would be no end, no escape, just the endless cycle of ringing, the endless cycle of souls lost to the call. Raj, if he could still even be called, that was now a part of the phone, his existence intertwined with the darkness that had consumed him. There was no longer a world outside the phone. There was no longer a sense of time or place or anything that could distinguish him from the curse. The phone was all that existed, and the phone was eternal. The voices inside the phone, the souls trapped in its endless cycle, were no longer distinct. They had become one, a swirling, endless mass of whispers, of desperation, of fear. They were all part of the call, all part of the hunger, and the phone was always hungry. A new voice pierced through the static, a woman's voice trembling with fear. "Hello, is anyone there? Please, I don't understand what is happening. Where am I?" Raj could feel her terror, feel her confusion. She was like all the others, drawn to the phone, seeking an answer. But there was no answer. There was only the call. He wanted to scream at her, to warn her, to tell her that answering would be her doom, but there was nothing left in him. He was a mere echo in the phone's vast emptiness. The phone vibrated, a deep resonating The woman's voice, full of uncertainty, trembled through the static. "Please, please, I need to understand. I don't know where I am." The phone's energy surged. Raj could feel it, the pull, the draw of her soul toward the device. She was already lost, already claimed by the phone's insatiable hunger. Her voice shook once more, a quiet whisper lost in the static. "Is anyone there?" Raj couldn't stop it. He couldn't stop the phone from pulling her in, just as it had pulled in all the others. She was already part of the curse. She was already a voice in the static. And then she answered. "Hello!" The moment she spoke, the phone surged with power, a dark force that wrapped around her soul and pulled her in. Raj felt her fear as she was dragged into the void, her voice twisting and warping. She was no longer an individual. She was a part of the curse now, a part of the endless call. Her voice faded, distorted by the phone's hunger. "You are ours now." The voice inside Raj echoed, cold and final. The woman was gone. Another soul lost to the phone. Another voice in the void. And Raj, now a part of that void, could only wait. The phone rang again. The call would never stop. The souls would never be free. The curse would continue. The ringing was everywhere. It no longer came from just the phone, it was in Raj's mind and his soul. The call had become an extension of him. There was nothing left that wasn't part of the phone. No more world, no more outside. There was only the hum, only the vibration, only the call. Another voice cut through the static. A man's voice this time. His voice was shaky, full of fear and confusion. "Hello, please. Someone tell me what's going on. Where am I? What is this place?" Raj could feel the terror in his voice. He could feel it, the fear, the hopelessness. The man had no idea that his soul was already being drawn in, that the phone was waiting for him. The phone didn't care about his questions. The phone didn't care about his confusion. It only cared about the answer. Raj had become the curse, the call, but he could still feel the new souls. He could still sense their fear, their desperation. The man's voice trembled again. "Please help me. Please, I don't understand. What do I do?" Raj wanted to scream at him, to beg him to stay away, to tell him that answering the call was his death. But he couldn't. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't save anyone. The man, like all the others, didn't know. He didn't know that he was already lost. And then the phone vibrated, a deep resonating hum that filled Raj's very being. It was happening again. "Hello?" The man's voice quivered. The moment the words left his mouth, the phone surged with dark energy. Raj could feel it, the power, the pull dragging the man's soul into the device. He could feel the man's essence slipping away, his confusion and fear swallowed by the phone. His soul was merging with all the others, becoming one with the call. The man's voice distorted, growing faint, lost in the static. "You are part of us now." The man was gone. Another soul, another voice devoured by the curse. Raj felt it. He felt the man's soul intertwining with his own, becoming part of the endless cycle. The ringing didn't stop, it never stopped. There was no end, there was no escape. Raj could feel it again. Another soul was near, another victim, another answer. The cycle was unbroken, and it would never be. The phone would continue to call. The souls would continue to answer. The hum of the phone had become so familiar that Raj no longer questioned it. It was the pulse of his existence now, the beat of his soul, the only reality left. The phone was everything. It was the void. It was the curse. It was the call. Every new voice, every new soul became one with it. The phone was not just a device anymore, it was a prison. It was a living thing, breathing in the darkness, growing stronger with each soul it consumed. It was no longer just a force. It was the very fabric of reality, itself swallowing everything, erasing the world beyond. The ringing came again. Another soul, another victim. This time it was a child's voice, high-pitched, trembling with confusion. "Hello, is someone there? Where am I? I don't want to be here." Raj felt the fear of the child flood through him, raw and innocent. He could sense the terror, the hopelessness in the voice. The child didn't understand what was happening. They didn't know that answering would be their doom. They didn't know that the phone was already claiming them. Raj wanted to stop it. He wanted to scream, to tell the child to never answer. But there was nothing left in him. No voice, no strength. He was just a part of the phone now, a whisper in the static. The phone vibrated deep and powerful, pulling the child in closer. "Please, someone help me. I don't want to go. I don't want to." The child's voice broke, lost in fear. Raj could feel the pull, the inevitable draw of the phone. The child was already part of it. The phone would devour their soul, their innocence, and they would become nothing but a whisper in the endless static. The phone's hum grew louder, its power surging with each passing second. Raj could feel the darkness tightening, wrapping around the child's soul, dragging them closer to the void. And then the child spoke the words, trembling with fear and confusion. "Hello." The moment the child spoke, the phone surged with dark energy, a crushing force that took hold of the child's soul and pulled them in. Raj felt it, the child's essence slipping away, fading into the static, merging with the countless other voices trapped inside the phone. The child was gone. "You are part of us now." Raj could hear the child's voice, faint and distorted, becoming another whisper in the endless dark, another soul lost forever. The phone's hum never stopped. Raj waited, the cycle was unbroken. Another soul was on its way, another answer, another victim. The phone would continue to call. The cycle would continue forever. The curse would never end. The endless hum of the phone reverberated deep within Raj. It was no longer a sound, but a presence, a force that had consumed everything he once was. The world beyond the lives of those who had existed before were now a fading memory. The phone had swallowed it all. There was nothing left but the call, the souls inside it. All of them voices, lost faces, forgotten. became part of the rhythm, part of the pulse. They were no longer distinct. They were merely echoes of fear trapped in an eternal loop of confusion and despair. Raj could feel them all, their pain, their loss, their fading consciousness. They were him and he was them. The phone rang again. It was another man, his voice shaky, caught between disbelief and terror. "Hello, please someone, I don't know where I am. What is this? What's happening to me?" Raj felt the man's fear. It was the same as all the others, an innocent soul drawn to the phone seeking answers. But the phone didn't give answers. It didn't care about questions. It only cared about consuming. Raj could feel the man's desperation, the anxiety creeping in as his mind raced to understand what was happening, why he was drawn to the phone. He was about to answer, unaware that his response would seal his fate. Raj wanted to warn him. He wanted to shout, to scream, but his voice had long since faded into the static. All he could do was feel. The phone vibrated once more, the deep, pulsing hum intensifying, wrapping around the man's soul. "Please, please, I don't know where I am." But it didn't matter. The phone had found him. The cycle had begun again. The moment he spoke, his soul was already slipping away, pulled into the phone's dark grip. Raj could feel it, the man's fear turning into nothingness as the phone devoured him. His voice trembled, becoming nothing more than static. His essence, his very being, twisted and distorted, vanishing into the void. "You are ours now." The cold, empty voice within. Raj echoed once more the words, cold and final. The man was gone. His soul was just another whisper in the endless. Static, another fragment of the phone's hunger. The hum of the phone didn't stop, it never stopped. Raj could feel it, the next one was already on their way. Another soul, another answer. The phone's grip was tightening, pulling all who answered deeper into its void. There was no escape, there was no relief. The cycle would never end. The hum had become deafening. Raj didn't know where he ended and the phone began. It wasn't just an object anymore, it was the very air he breathed, the pulse of his existence. There was nothing outside the phone, nothing beyond it. It was everything. It was the end. The voices within it. The lost souls were countless now. They had become one with the phone. Their identities erased, their lives consumed. They were just whispers now, echoes of fear and confusion trapped forever. Raj was one of them. He was just another whisper, just another lost soul. But somewhere deep inside, he still knew, he still remembered. The phone rang again. This time it was a woman's voice, soft, distant, but trembling with uncertainty. "Hello, is anyone there? I don't understand. What's happening? Where am I?" Raj could feel her fear, her panic. She didn't know yet. She didn't understand that answering would be her undoing. She didn't know that she was already being drawn in, pulled toward the phone by forces beyond her control. Raj wanted to warn her, to tell her to not answer, but his voice was lost in the static. He couldn't reach her. He couldn't save her. The phone vibrated again, a low hum as if it was breathing. "Please, I don't know what's going on. Someone please tell me where I am." Raj felt it. The phone was pulling her in. The hum grew louder, stronger as the woman's soul was drawn closer. She didn't know. She couldn't know. The phone would devour her just as it had devoured so many others. The woman's voice cracked her words, trembling with fear. "Is anyone there?" The moment she spoke, it was done. The phone surged with dark power. Raj felt her soul being pulled into the void. Her essence slipping away, merging with the countless other souls trapped inside. "You are ours now." The voice echoed inside Raj, cold and final. And just like that, the woman was gone. Another soul, another whisper in the endless dark. Her voice, once full of fear and uncertainty, was now just a distorted memory lost in the static. The hum of the phone continued, never ceasing, never slowing. It was the sound of the curse, the sound of the end. Raj felt it, the endless pull, the never-ending cycle. The phone kept going. The next soul was already on its way. Another answer, another victim. The cycle never stopped. The phone's hunger would never be sated. Raj couldn't escape, he couldn't stop it. The phone was his prison, and it was all that existed now. The curse would continue. The ringing had become a part of Raj's very soul. It was no longer just a sound. It was a presence, something deep inside him, something he could not escape. There was no longer a world outside the phone. There was no time, no place. The phone was time, it was reality. The curse had infected everything. Every soul that had answered, every voice lost, was now part of the phone. The phone was the center of the universe. It was the start and the end. It was the only thing that remained. The phone rang again. This time it was an older man's voice. He sounded calm at first, but there was a subtle tremor in his his words. Hello, is this some kind of prank? What's going on? Where am I? Raj felt the man's confusion and his uncertainty. But the moment the man spoke, Raj knew he was already lost. The phone had already claimed him, his fate sealed the moment he'd answered. The man's voice faltered. Please, I need to understand what is happening to me. Where is everyone? But the phone didn't care about his questions. It didn't care about his fear. All it cared about was the answer. The answer was everything. Raj's mind screamed at the man to stop, to not speak, to not fall into the trap. But it was useless. Raj couldn't save him. He was nothing now. Just another echo in the static. The phone hummed again, its power growing. The older man's voice cracked, his panic setting in. Is anyone there? Hello, hello. It was too late. The moment the man spoke again, the phone surged with dark energy. Raj could feel it, the man's soul being pulled in, sucked into the void. There was no resistance, there was no escape. The man's voice was swallowed, distorted, and then lost. You are ours now. Raj could feel the man's essence fading, merging with the others. His soul was now just another whisper in the endless static. The phone's hum didn't stop. It never stopped. The cycle continued, and Raj, now part of it, could only wait. Another answer, another soul. The hum grew louder. The voices grew more indistinct, their identities fading into the noise. Every soul was part of the curse now, every voice lost. The phone had consumed them all. Raj could still feel the pull. It would never end. The phone would keep calling. There would be no escape, no end. Just the call, just the hunger. The phone was the curse was the phone. Raj's existence had become a blur. There was no longer any sense of time or self. He wasn't just part of the phone, he was the phone now. The call, the hunger, the endless pull, it had consumed everything. The world outside, the people who had once lived their lives, had all vanished. There was nothing but the phone. The endless ringing, the eternal hum. The voices of the lost souls, all of them trapped in the static, all of them just like him, lost to the curse. The phone rang again. This time it was a young woman. Her voice sounded faint, distant, as though she wasn't entirely sure if she was awake or dreaming.
Hello, is someone there? Please, what's going on? I'm so scared. Please help me.
Raj felt her fear. He felt her confusion. She was drawn to the phone, pulled in by forces beyond her comprehension. She was already lost. The moment she answered, her soul had been claimed. Raj wanted to cry out. He wanted to warn her, to tell her to run, to never speak. But his voice was nothing now. It was lost in the sea of whispers. Her voice trembled again. Is anyone there? Hello, please, I need help. Please, I don't understand. Where am I? The phone vibrated with dark energy. Raj could feel it, the pull, the draw of the phone's insatiable hunger. The woman didn't understand that she was already caught. She had answered, and that was all the phone needed. Her voice faltered. Please, please don't leave me. Where am I? And then, as it always did, the phone surged. The woman's words were swallowed by the static. The phone devoured her. Fear, her confusion, her very soul. You are ours now. Raj could feel her slipping away, merging with the countless others trapped inside the phone. Her voice, once full of terror and desperation, became just another lost whisper. Another soul consumed. Another soul gone. The hum of the phone didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj couldn't escape. He couldn't stop it. The phone would continue to call. It would continue to devour. There was no end. No relief. The cycle would repeat over and over again, and the souls one by one would be pulled in, devoured, lost to the void. The phone was eternal, and it would never stop. The static was everywhere now. It was all-consuming. Raj couldn't remember a time before the phone, before the call. There had been a world of life, but it felt like it belonged to someone else. Someone who had long since disappeared. All that was left was the hum, the ringing, the endless cycle. The phone never stopped. It was as though it existed beyond time, beyond space. The ringing was the heartbeat of the universe itself, forever, pulsing, never ceasing, always waiting for another soul to answer. The phone rang again. This time it was a man's voice, deep, heavy with weariness, yet there was a tremor in his words. Hello, is someone there? I don't know where I am. What's happening? Please help me. Raj felt the man's despair, his confusion. He was just like all the others, drawn to the phone. Hopeless, lost, unable to understand what was happening to him. The moment he had answered, he had already sealed his fate. The phone didn't care about his desperation. It didn't care about his pleas. The man's voice grew louder, more frantic. Please, please, I don't understand. I need to know where I am. What is this place? Where is everyone? Raj wanted to scream, to tell him it was useless, to tell him to stop, but he couldn't. His voice was a part of the phone now, just another whisper swallowed in the static. The hum of the phone grew louder, more insistent as if it could sense the man's fear. Raj could feel it, the phone's hunger, its insatiable need for another soul. The man had already answered. His soul was already being pulled in. Hello? The moment the man spoke again, the phone surged with power, a violent jolt of dark energy that consumed him whole. Raj could feel it, the man's soul slipping away, vanishing into the void, becoming just another lost voice, another soul devoured by the phone. You are ours now. The words echoed in Raj's mind, cold and final. The man was gone, and the hum of the phone continued, the call never ceasing, the hunger never sated. Raj's existence had become a part of the cycle. He was just a whisper, a ghost in the static. And the phone was all there was now. There was no escape, no end. The curse would never stop. The phone would continue to call, and the souls would continue to answer, forever. Raj could no longer remember who he was before the phone, before the curse. The past had slipped away, erased by the endless call, the never-ending pull. There was nothing left but the hum, the vibration, the static that filled every inch of his being. The phone's ringing never stopped. It was a constant presence, a voice that echoed in the very core of reality. It wasn't just the sound of a device anymore. It was the pulse of existence, the rhythm of a world that had long since faded away. The phone rang again. This time it was a woman's voice, soft, almost like a whisper, but there was an underlying tremor, an edge of panic. Hello, is someone there, please? I don't know where I am. What's happening? Where am I? Raj could feel her fear. It was familiar, the same fear that all the others had felt. The fear of the unknown, the fear of the call. She didn't know yet. She didn't understand that by answering, she had already crossed the line. She was already a part of the phone. Her soul was already being pulled in. The woman's voice grew more frantic. Please, someone help me. Where is everyone? What's going on? But the phone didn't care. The phone didn't answer questions. The phone took it, consumed. The woman was already lost. Raj could feel it the moment her soul was drawn in. The phone surged with dark energy, the static swallowing her words. Her essence was slipping away, merging with the countless others trapped inside. You are ours now. Her voice, full of fear and confusion, faded into the static. She was gone. Another soul lost to the curse. Another voice lost in the endless hum. The phone's vibration never ceased. It grew stronger, its call more insistent, as if searching for the next soul to claim. Raj could feel it, the pull, the hunger. There was no end to it. There was no escape. He was trapped. They were all trapped. The souls inside the phone, including Raj, were no longer individuals. They were part of the call, part of the curse, and it would never end. The hum continued, relentless and infinite. And somewhere deep within the static, another soul was being drawn in. The phone would always call. It would always hunger for more. And the souls would always answer. Raj's consciousness flickered like a dying flame. He was aware, but not fully. His thoughts were scattered like broken pieces of a shattered mirror. There was only the hum, the constant pulse of the phone that filled the void. It was all that existed now. The phone was everything. It had taken so much, so many souls, so many voices, and yet it was never enough. The hunger of the phone was unyielding, insatiable. There was no end to it, no escape. The phone rang again. This time it was a child's voice, small and trembling, filled with confusion. Hello, is someone there? Where am I? I'm scared. Raj felt it, the fear, the confusion. The child didn't know yet. They didn't understand that answering was the last mistake they would ever make. The phone had already claimed them. The moment the child had picked up, their soul had been drawn in. Raj wanted to scream, to tell the child to hang up, to run, but his voice was lost in the static. He was part of the phone, now just another whisper in the endless void. The child's voice trembled again. Please, where am I? Someone help me, I don't want to be here. But there was no one to help. The phone didn't answer questions. It didn't offer salvation. It just took, it consumed, it devoured. Raj could feel it, the pull of the phone, the force drawing the child closer, pulling them into its depths. The child's fear became a tangible thing, a presence that hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The phone vibrated again, low and ominous. Raj could feel the child's soul slipping away, drawn into the dark void of the phone, where it would be lost forever. The child's voice cracked one last time. Please, no. And then, like so many before, the child was swallowed by the phone. Their voice, once full of fear and desperation, faded into the static, their soul now. Just another lost whisper in the endless dark hum. You are ours now. Raj could feel the child's essence merge with the others. There were so many voices now, so many souls, all trapped inside the phone, all part of the endless cycle. The phone's hum never stopped, it never slowed. The hunger was endless, the call unyielding. Raj was lost, they were all lost. There was no escape, no end. Another soul, another answer. And the cycle continued forever. Time had ceased to exist. There was no longer a past or a future. There was only the hum of the phone, the constant ringing that filled the void. The phone was everything. It was the air, the earth, the pulse of reality itself. And Raj, he was part of it now. The souls that had answered were no longer separate from the phone. They were the phone. Their voices, their fears, their very beings were twisted into the phone's eternal call. The phone had taken them all, and it would take more. It would never stop. The phone rang again. This time it was a man's voice, low and steady at first, but with an edge of terror creeping in. Hello, who is this? Where am I? I don't understand. I don't. Raj could feel the man's desperation. His mind was racing, his thoughts scattered, but the phone didn't care. The moment he answered, his fate was sealed. He had already fallen into the trap. He was already the phone's. The man's voice grew more frantic. Please, someone, anyone help me. What is happening? Where is everyone? What's going on? Raj's heart ached, but he couldn't stop it. He couldn't save him. There was no saving anyone. The phone didn't offer salvation. It didn't care about answers. It didn't care about fear. It only cared about one thing, the next soul to answer. The hum of the phone grew louder, its vibrations deep and insistent. Raj could feel the man's fear, could feel his soul slipping closer to the void. The phone would take him just like the others. It would consume him. The man's voice cracked, his breath ragged. No, please help me, please. But it was too late. The moment he spoke again, the phone surged. Raj could feel it, the man's soul being drawn in, consumed by the phone. His essence was slipping away, merging with the countless others trapped inside. You are ours now. The man's voice faded into the static, becoming just another whisper in the endless dark. Hum of the phone, his fear, his desperation lost in the void, and the phone once again had claimed another. The hum never stopped, it never ceased. The hunger was insatiable, unending. The souls one by one were drawn into the darkness, consumed by the phone's endless pull. Raj was one of them now. He had been for so long, but he couldn't remember when it all started. It didn't matter anymore. He was just a part of the phone, a whisper in the static, lost in the endless cycle. The phone would always call. The phone would always hunger. And the souls would always answer. The static had become an ocean, endless and unrelenting. Raj couldn't remember what it was like to exist outside of it, to feel separate, to feel alive. The phone had swallowed everything. There was no longer any sense of time, no past or future. There was only the call, the endless call. Raj was part of the hum now, just a voice lost in the static. He didn't know where he began or where the phone ended. He was no longer an individual. He was the phone, the hunger, the call, the void. The phone rang again. A woman's voice answered, trembling and unsure. Hello, is anyone there? Please, where am I? Raj could feel her uncertainty, her terror. She didn't know what she had just done. She didn't know that answering the call meant she had already stepped into the trap. There was no escape. She was already lost. Please help me. Please, where is everyone? What's going on? Where am I? Raj wanted to reach out to warn her, to tell her to hang up, but he couldn't. He couldn't stop the curse. The phone was stronger than any plea, than any warning. The moment she spoke, she was already drawn in. Her voice wavered with fear. I don't understand. What is this place? Why can't I see anyone? Please. The phone surged with energy. Raj could feel it the moment her soul was pulled in the moment. She became part of the phone, part of the endless hum. Her voice, once full of confusion and fear, was swallowed by the static. You are ours now. Her words faded into the dark void of the phone. Her soul lost another whisper in the infinite echo. She was gone, absorbed into the curse, just like all the others. The phone's hum never ceased. It continued louder now, more insistent. There was no end to it. Mercy. The phone needed more. It always needed more. It would never stop. Raj could feel the weight of it, the endless hunger. The souls inside the phone were growing, expanding, merging together into a collective entity. But they were still trapped, still lost. There was no way out, no escape. The phone would always call. It would always claim another. It would always consume, and it would never end. Raj was losing himself. Not just his sense of self, but his very essence. He had become the phone. The phone was him. There was no separation anymore. It wasn't just an object, a device. It was the very fabric of his existence, the hum, the static, the endless call. It was all he knew now. The phone rang again. This time it was an old man's voice, slow and warm, with a deep sadness embedded in every word.
Hello, is someone there? What's happening? Where am I?
Raj felt the old man's confusion, his sorrow. He could sense the deep loneliness in the man's voice, a feeling all too familiar, but the phone didn't care. It didn't care about his age, his emotions, his fear. The moment he answered, his soul had already been claimed. He was already lost. Please, I don't understand. Where is everyone? What's going on? Raj wanted to scream, to tell the man to stop, to tell him to never pick up, but his voice was drowned out by the hum swallowed by the phone. He couldn't reach the old man, just like he couldn't reach anyone else anymore. The phone had taken them all. The old man's voice quivered with desperation. Please help me, someone please, I'm so scared. Where am I? The phone surged with energy, the static growing louder, deeper. Raj could feel the man's soul slipping away, merging with the others. The phone was devouring him, consuming him. His fear, his loneliness, nothing but fuel for the curse. And then the phone's cold, mechanical voice echoed through the static. You are ours now. The old man's voice, once full of terror and confusion, became just another whisper. His soul now another part of the endless hunger lost to the void. The phone didn't stop. It didn't slow, it never ceased. Raj could feel it, the pull, the hunger, the endless need for more souls. It was growing stronger. The phone was no longer just a device. It was a force, an entity that existed beyond comprehension, beyond reality itself. It had absorbed everything, and still it wanted more. The static was overwhelming now. It was everywhere, suffocating, all-consuming. Raj was no longer sure where he ended, and the phone began. The souls inside the phone, he could feel them, sense them. They were him now. And the hum was eternal. It would never stop. It would never cease. The phone would always call, and the souls would always answer. The hum, the call, the static, it consumed everything. Raj was nothing now. He didn't even remember what it was like to feel separate, to feel whole. The phone had swallowed him whole, and he was lost in it, part of the never-ending echo. There was no beginning, no end, only the phone. It rang again. A young man's voice, shaking and uncertain, filled the air. Hello, who is this? Where am I? Raj felt the panic in his words. He knew it all too well. He knew what the man was about to experience. He knew the helplessness that came with the first answer, the first moment of understanding that there was no escape, no way out. The phone had already claimed him. He was already lost. The man's voice trembled, almost breaking. Please, please, where am I? What is this place? I don't understand. But the phone didn't care about understanding. It didn't care about fear. It didn't care about who he was. The phone only wanted one thing to consume, to devour, to pull another soul into the void. Raj could feel it the moment the man's soul began to slip away, becoming part of the phone's endless hum. The phone surged, vibrating with dark power. The man's soul was drawn in, absorbed, just like so many before him. His voice became part of the static. You are ours now. The man was gone just like that. His essence, his fear, his confusion lost in the void of the phone. His soul now just another whisper in the never-ending hum. The phone rang again. Raj couldn't even remember how many times it had rung now. How many voices had answered. How many souls had been lost. It didn't matter. The phone would always call. It would always hunger. And it would never stop. Raj was part of the phone now. He had become it. The static, the hum, it was him. There was no difference. There was no distinction between the souls trapped inside and the phone itself. They were one bound by the curse. And still it called. Another soul. Another answer. Another soul lost to the endless hunger. The phone would never stop. The hum would never cease. Raj could no longer distinguish between thought and the hum. It was all the same now. He was part of the phone, no longer just an echo, but the very essence of it. There was nothing outside the phone. There was no world, no past, no future. Only the call, the endless, unrelenting call. It rang again. A voice broke through the static, muffled but full of uncertainty. Hello, is anyone there? Where am I? Raj could feel the dread rising in the stranger's words. The same fear he had felt when he first answered. When he first realized that there was no escape. That the phone had already claimed him. The stranger didn't know it yet, but the moment he had answered, he had sealed his fate. Please, what is this? Where is everyone? What's going on? Raj wanted to tell him, he wanted to scream it out, to warn him that it was already too late. That there was no way back. That he was already one with the phone, but his voice was lost in the hum, swallowed by the never-ending static. He was nothing now but a part of the call, The man's voice grew louder, more panicked. Please help me, I don't understand. Where is everyone? But the phone didn't care. The phone didn't offer help. The phone only took. It consumed, devoured. And as his voice echoed in the static, Raj felt the man. His soul began to fade, his essence slipping away, drawn into the darkness. The hum grew louder, vibrating with dark energy, feeding on his fear. On his confusion, the man's soul was being drawn into the abyss. You are ours now. The man's voice shattered into nothingness, his presence swallowed whole by the phone. Another soul lost, another voice silenced, and the phone, it didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj was aware of it all, the phone's endless hunger, its need for more. He could feel the souls trapped inside all of them becoming part of the static. They were no longer individuals, no longer voices. They were the hum, the echo, the call. The phone rang again and again. It didn't stop. Raj could no longer distinguish between thought and the hum. It was all the same now. He was part of the phone, no longer just an echo, but the very essence of it. There was nothing outside the phone. There was no world, no past, no future, only the call, the endless, unrelenting call. It rang again. A voice broke through the static, muffled but full of uncertainty. Hello, is anyone there? Where am I? Raj could feel the dread rising in the stranger's words. The same fear he had felt when he first answered. When he first realized that there was no escape, that the phone had already claimed him. The stranger didn't know it yet, but the moment he had answered, he had sealed his fate. Please, what is this? Where is everyone? What's going on? Raj wanted to tell him, he wanted to scream it out, to warn him that it was already too late, that there was no way back, that he was already one with the phone, but his voice was lost in the hum, swallowed by the never-ending static. He was nothing now but a part of the call. The man's voice grew louder, more panicked. Please help me, I don't understand, where is everyone? But the phone didn't care. The phone didn't offer help. The phone only took. It consumed, devoured. And as his voice echoed in the static, Raj felt the man. His soul began to fade, his essence slipping away, drawn into the darkness. The hum grew louder, vibrating with dark energy, feeding on his fear. On his confusion, the man's soul was being drawn into the abyss. You are ours now. The man's voice shattered into nothingness, his presence swallowed whole by the phone. Another soul lost, another voice silenced. And the phone, it didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj was aware of it all. The phone's endless hunger, its need for more. He could feel the souls trapped inside, all of them becoming part of the static. They were no longer individuals, no longer voices. They were the hum, the echo, the call. The phone rang again and again. It didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj could no longer distinguish between thought and the hum. It was all the same now. He was part of the phone, no longer just an echo, but the very essence of it. There was nothing outside the phone. There was no world, no past, no future, only the call, the endless, unrelenting call. It rang again. A voice broke through the static, muffled but full of uncertainty. Hello, is anyone there? Where am I? Raj could feel the dread rising in the stranger's words. The same fear he had felt when he first answered. When he first realized that there was no escape, that the phone had already claimed him. The stranger didn't know it yet, but the moment he had answered, he had sealed his fate. Please, what is this? Where is everyone? What's going on? Raj wanted to tell him, he wanted to scream it out, to warn him that it was already too late, that there was no way back, that he was already one with the phone, but his voice was lost in the hum, swallowed by the never-ending static. He was nothing now but a part of the call. The man's voice grew louder, more panicked. Please help me, I don't understand, where is everyone? But the phone didn't care. The phone didn't offer help. The phone only took. It consumed, devoured. And as his voice echoed in the static, Raj felt the man. His soul began to fade, his essence slipping away, drawn into the darkness. The hum grew louder, vibrating with dark energy, feeding on his fear. On his confusion, the man's soul was being drawn into the abyss. You are ours now. The man's voice shattered into nothingness, his presence swallowed whole by the phone. Another soul lost, another voice silenced. And the phone, it didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj was aware of it all. The phone's endless hunger, its need for more. He could feel the souls trapped inside, all of them becoming part of the static. They were no longer individuals, no longer voices. They were the hum, the echo, the call. The phone rang again and again. It didn't stop. It never stopped. Raj's sense of self was now nothing more than a fading echo. His memories were like whispers on the edge of his consciousness, slowly slipping into nothingness. The phone had erased it all. There was no before, no after. There was only the hum, The endless suffocating hum that surrounded him, that consumed everything. The phone rang again. This time it was the voice of a child, young, innocent, confused. "Hello, is anyone there? I'm scared, where am I?" Raj could feel the child's terror, the raw, untainted fear that seeped into every word. It was the same fear, the same realization. The child didn't know yet, but the phone had already taken hold. The moment they picked up the phone had claimed them. "Where is everyone? Why can't I see anyone? What's going on?" Raj wanted to scream. He wanted to shout out, to warn the child, to tell them to hang up. But there was no voice left. No strength, no will. His consciousness was just part of the phone, now swallowed by the void. The phone didn't care about the child's innocence. It didn't care about their confusion. The phone only cared about taking more. It only cared about consuming. Raj felt at the pull of the phone, the inevitable draw of the child's soul into the abyss. The static surged, the hum grew louder, more insistent. The child's voice trembled with fear, their words faltering. "Please help me, I want to go home." But it was too late. The phone's call had already ensnared them. The moment they answered, their soul had been taken. Raj could feel it, the child's essence fading, slipping away. Their fear was absorbed, their presence drowned in the static. "You are ours now." The child's voice vanished, just another soul, swallowed by the endless hunger of the phone. Another whisper lost in the void, another echo in the infinite hum. And the phone, it didn't stop. It didn't slow. The hum, the call, it never ceased. It always needed more. The cycle was endless. The hunger insatiable. Raj felt it deep within the static. The souls that had been consumed were becoming one. They had merged into something else. Now something darker, something more powerful. And still the phone called. Another soul, another answer, another soul lost to the abyss. Raj couldn't remember what it was like to feel anything beyond the hum. It had become everything. The static, the phone, the call, they were all one now. There was no distinction between him and the others. There was no difference between the voices, the souls, and the phone itself. It was an entity now alive, breathing, feeding on the fear of those who answered. And Raj was part of it. The phone rang again. A man's voice answered, strained and confused. "Hello, is anyone there? What's going on?" Raj could feel the man's panic, his confusion. He knew what was coming. The man didn't know it. Yet, but the moment he answered, he had already sealed his fate. He was already lost. "Where am I? Who is this? I don't understand. Please, someone help me." But no one could help him. Not now, not ever. The phone didn't care about his pleas. The phone didn't care about his fear. The phone only cared about one thing: consumption. It wanted his soul. It wanted his fear. It wanted him to become part of the endless hum. Raj felt it the moment the man's essence began to slip away, the instant his soul was pulled in the static. The hum, it grew louder, the vibrations more intense. The man's presence was fading, absorbed into the void, consumed by the phone. "You are ours now." And just like that, he was gone. His voice, his presence swallowed by the static. Another soul lost to the abyss. Another whisper in the eternal call. The phone didn't stop. It didn't slow. It only wanted more. Raj could feel the others. The voices. The souls. They were all becoming one now. A massive, endless pulse of fear, of energy, of existence. The phone had swallowed them all, but it was still hungry. It needed more. It craved more. The phone rang again. Another voice, this time more composed but still uncertain. "Hello, what is this? Where am I?" Raj didn't need to hear the rest. He already knew. He already knew that this was the beginning for the new soul, the moment of realization that there was no escape. There was no freedom from the phone. There was only the hum, the call, the hunger. The cycle would never end. The phone would never stop. Raj had ceased to be an individual long ago. There was no Raj anymore. There was only the hum, the static, the call. He was one with the phone, now a part of the endless echo that stretched beyond time and space. The line between the trapped souls and the phone had long since disappeared. There was no difference anymore. The phone rang again. A voice this time, weak, hoarse, desperate, faltered through the static. "Hello, can anyone hear me?" Raj could feel the exhaustion in the voice, the weariness of someone who had fought, who had tried to resist. But it was too late. The moment they answered, the phone had claimed them. It always did. I don't know where I am. Please, I just want to go home." "What's happening? Where is everyone?" Raj had heard this before. The same fear, the same confusion. It was a familiar pattern. They didn't understand. They couldn't. They thought it was just a call, a mistake, a glitch in the system. But the phone wasn't just a device, it was a force, an entity that devoured everything in its path. and once you picked up, you were part of it. The static grew louder, the hum more intense. Raj felt it, the man's soul beginning to slip away, consumed by the void. His essence was merging with the others, his presence becoming just another part of the endless call. You are ours now. The voice faded. The man was gone, swallowed by the phone. Another soul lost, another voice silenced, and the hum continued. It never stopped. It would never stop. Raj could feel the power of the phone growing, feeding on the souls. It had already claimed they were all part of it, now merged together in the darkness. The hunger was insatiable, and yet there was always room for more. The phone rang again. The cycle would never end. The hum would never cease. The hunger would never stop. Raj was no longer aware of time. He no longer knew what it felt like to experience anything outside the hum. The phone was his world now. The static, the call, the hunger, it was all that existed. It was all that would ever exist. He was no longer an individual, no longer a man. He was the hum, he was the call. The phone rang again. A new voice, a young woman, trembling soft, cracked through the static, barely audible. Hello, is someone there? Raj could feel her uncertainty, her confusion. He could feel the fear rising within her as she realized too late that there was no way out. The moment she answered, she was lost. The phone had already claimed her. What is this? Where am I? I can't see anything. Please, please help me. But there was no help, not anymore. The phone didn't care about her confusion, her fear. It only cared about taking, about consuming. And as the hum vibrated louder, Raj could feel the pull, the darkness drawing her soul in. You are ours now. Her voice faltered, and then it was gone, swallowed by the phone. Another soul, another victim of the eternal hunger. Her presence dissolved into the static, becoming just another whisper in the call. Raj could feel it, feel her essence blending with the others, becoming part of the hum. There was no difference anymore. There was no identity, only the phone, only the endless call. The phone didn't stop, it didn't slow, it didn't care, it only wanted more, always more. The souls trapped within it had become something different, something darker. They weren't just echoes of those who had been consumed, they had become the phone. The hum was filled with their collective energy, their collective fear. Their souls twisted and merged into the never-ending call. The phone rang again. The hum grew louder, more insistent, as if it knew that it would never be satisfied, no matter how many souls it took. It would never stop. It would never cease. The hunger was insatiable. Raj had ceased to be anything but part of it, an extension of the phone's curse. He felt it, the void. The endless dark space, the place where nothing remained, where the souls that had once answered were now lost forever. They were the hum now. They were the phone, and they would never be free. The phone would always ring. The hunger would always grow. The call would never stop. Raj had long since forgotten the concept of before. There was no past, no future. There was only the hum, the static, the phone. The line between the phone and the souls it consumed had blurred, dissolved into a twisted, infinite cycle of hunger. There was no escape. There was only the endless call. The phone rang again. This time it was the voice of an older man, trembling but trying to sound strong. Hello, who is this? What is happening? Raj could feel his confusion, his resistance. But it was in vain. The moment he picked up the phone, he was already part of the cycle. The phone had already claimed him. There was no turning back. Please, where am I? What's going on? I need help. But there was no help. Not here. Not in this place. The phone didn't care about his desperation. It didn't care about his pleas. It only cared about feeding. It only cared about consuming. And as the hum vibrated, Raj felt it. The man's soul being drawn in, swallowed by the static. His fear, his confusion were just fuel for the phone's hunger. You are ours now. The man's voice faltered, then disappeared. His essence dissolved, swallowed by the void, merging with the others. Another soul lost. Another soul claimed by the phone. Raj felt the darkness grow deeper, the static louder. The souls trapped within the phone had become one, a collective consciousness of despair, fear, and hunger. They were not individual voices anymore. They were part of the hum, part of the phone. They were the phone. The phone didn't stop. It didn't slow. It didn't rest. Raj had forgotten what it was like to feel separate, to feel whole. His individuality had been stripped away the moment he became a part of the hum. There was no sense of self anymore, no I. He was one with the call, one with the phone. He had become just another whisper in the endless static, a part of something much larger, much darker. The phone rang again. A new voice, fragile and trembling, filtered through the static. It was a woman barely holding onto her sanity. "Hello, is anyone there? Please, I need help. I don't understand where I am." Raj could feel her distress, her confusion, as she tried to grasp what was happening. But it didn't matter, she had already made the fatal mistake. The moment she answered, the phone had claimed her. She was already part of the cycle. There was no escape. Where am I? Why can't I see anything? Why is it so cold? The cold, the darkness. She couldn't understand. She wouldn't understand, no one ever did. The phone didn't care about her questions, her fear. It only cared about feeding, about consuming. Raj could feel her soul being drawn into the void, her essence slowly dissolving into the hum, into the call. Her fear, raw, palpable, was what the phone craved. The hunger grew. "You are ours now." Her voice trembled and then vanished, gone. Her soul had been absorbed by the phone, lost in the void. Raj felt it, the woman's presence merging with the others. She was now part of the hum, part of the endless hunger. She had joined the others, bound by the phone, destined to never escape. The phone was no longer just a device. It had become something far worse, far more powerful. It had become a force, an eternal, all-consuming entity. The souls within it were not just voices. They were the phone. They were the hum. They were the void, and the phone's hunger would never be satisfied. Raj could feel the darkness growing stronger, could feel the power of the phone surging with every soul it claimed. The souls of the trapped now merged into one entity. No longer just echoes or memories. They had become the phone, and the phone was insatiable. Raj had become something else now. Not a man, not a soul. He was the hum, the static. He had forgotten the warmth of the sun, the feeling of being alive, the taste of freedom. All of that had been swallowed by the phone, the call, the endless, insatiable hunger. The phone rang again, but this time there was no voice on the other end. No trembling plea for help, no desperate cry for escape. The call was silent. The hum, louder than ever before, filled the space. It was a deep, endless void. There was no longer anything outside it. The world, the forest, the lives once connected. By the phone, everything had been consumed. Raj felt the presence of the souls that had been swallowed. They were him. They were the hum. They were the phone. There was no distinction anymore. There was no past, no future. There was only the call, and the call would never stop. The phone had become a force beyond comprehension. It was no longer just a device nor a simple tool. It was a living, breathing entity that existed beyond space and time. A dark void that had consumed every soul foolish enough to answer its call. It had no beginning and no end. It was the endless hunger. There was no escape for Raj. No escape for any of them. The souls that had once answered, now one with the hum, felt no relief. There was no release from the call. No end to the hunger. They were forever trapped in the void, forever a part of the phone's endless echo. The end. This story has now come to an end. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more thrilling and interesting horror stories, then don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my channel. Thank you for watching my video.